Hey, I'm Tony Moreland, and this is POW, the Samsung Developers Podcast, where we chat with innovators using Samsung technologies, award-winning app developers and designers, as well as insiders working on the latest Samsung tools. Welcome to Season 2, Episode 4. On today's show, I interview Olga Gabay. Olga is a 2020 Best of Galaxy Store Award winner for her phone UI themed design, Dark Warrior. In just a few years, Olga's design style for capturing emotion in her themes has helped her become one of the top developers on Galaxy Store. Not only do we talk about her approach to design, the impact of COVID, but also the challenges related to using licensed imagery. Enjoy.
I am super excited to have on the podcast with me today, Olga Gabay. Welcome to the podcast, Olga.
Oh, thank you.
I absolutely love your work. Your designs always evoke such emotion. You know, when I see your themes, I often think of them as like movie posters or even like video game covers. They all seem to like tell a story. That being said, though, when I look at your full library of work, it's quite a variety of styles. Who is Olga Gabay?
Well, basically, I'm a graphic designer. I started to do this middle of 90s. By now, it's like almost 26 years of experience. So throughout all these years, what I collected, ideas, experiences, I just brought it now in my themes. And I still keep experimenting. So actually, sometimes people, they don't believe all my works are by the same designer.
Yes.
Because there is a variety of styles. Actually, I'm not really happy with that because I'm more jealous to people who can produce all their works in just one style. Something when you can say this designer has some unique face, some unique style, and I don't have it. I want to try this and that, like everything, a little bit of everything.
Yeah. When I think of Olga Gabay, I definitely do think of that certain style that I had mentioned where it really does capture emotion. But as I'm scanning through your collection, I see this wide variety, and I think I can relate to that a lot because even in my watch face designing that I was doing, I remember before I worked at Samsung, I had someone at Samsung give me a little advice and say, you should pick a style, you should pick a direction and then build on that brand. And I couldn't do it. I was just constantly,
exactly.
I would do something that was very artistic or I'd do something that's very mechanical. And I guess that's how I work, but that's what I can relate to that for sure. And interesting that you said that you started designing back in the 90s. That's about the time that I did too. We got the joy of working when Adobe was doing all those early releases of Photoshop and Illustrator. We got to be a part of that. So is that true? Were you working in Photoshop back in the early days?
Oh, yes, absolutely. So I believe my first Photoshop, that was a version of 2.5, I think.
Okay.
And yes, it was a lot of fun back then because, when they introduced this layer system.
Oh, yes.
I was like, wow, now you can put things on different layers. That was so exciting.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember even like multiple undos. When I first started, I think it was Photoshop, 1.2. We didn't even have multiple undos. It was one undo and that was it. There was no history. You couldn't go back. Everything was on one layer. But you know what? That made us pay attention that much more closely to the work that we were doing. Did you study design in school? Was this a career path that you started off early on?
Yeah, I was studying just in the college, but back then in the college, we didn't study any computers. So we were doing everything the old fashioned ways, like with paper, paints, pencils, glues. That's it. So nothing much.
Yes. And you know what's great about that? I mean, and you can tell me if you have the same sort of theory on that. I often tell when I'm teaching at classes in schools, you need to grab a pencil and paper to do your initial comping. That if you dive right into a computer program, you're limiting your freedom to design. So I always say those first comp designs, you should really grab pencil and paper. Do you have the same approach to design?
Yes, I agree with that. But I used to do it for many years. But, in all my themes now, I never did it even a single time because I was always like under the pressure to make my collection. Yeah. And then I just lost this habit. So nowadays I just go straight. But of course I do drafts. It's not like I create the image, the wallpaper as it's supposed to be. First, I'm just composing everything with low resolution images and just doing some marks with an electronic pen.
Sure.
So with my tablet, so it's still drafting, but electronically.
Gotcha. I see. Yeah, and I'm not surprised. When I see your work, I do see a lot of, I'll call it collaging. So it looks like you're compiling different imagery and bringing it together to make a new scene. So I could definitely see where you do rounds of comping and revisions to finally get to that final design.
Yeah, exactly.
Let me back up just a little bit and tell me, where are you originally from?
So originally I'm from Russia, from Moscow. I moved to Canada 20 years ago in Greater Toronto area, as life is more quiet here.
Nice. And I'm sure it's a little cold where you are, at least this time of year up in Canada. Your name is Olga Gabay, but tell me, do you have a company name? Is there a brand name behind Olga?
Yes, my company name is Zeru Studio, but because it's a small studio and I'm the only designer there, to other people, they do some routine things, not related to the designing. So I often go under my own name. I know it's sometimes it creates a little mess, but my name in the theme store is more a result of a registration. So I could not put the company name. That's the problem. Now I cannot change it.
Yeah, once you start building your collection, it can be a little difficult to halfway through to want to change course and switch the brand name because you lose the history and the download recording of it. Yeah, I understand your situation on that. Tell me about how you first learned about Samsung and designing themes.
Oh, actually, that's a little bit funny story because I was just exploring things on my phone, some new features, some settings, what I can do. And I came across the theme store. And the very first thing I realized there that it's not all these themes. They're not created by Samsung Electronics itself. I mean, by the local people. So there are all different designers from all over the world. And when I found it out, I said, oh, I can do the same. I need to give it a try. So then I just Googled how to create themes for Samsung Galaxy phones. And it brought me to the page where everyone can register for the program.
Sure. So how many years ago was that?
3-something years ago. First, it took me about 2 months to create my portfolio, actually. Then the review, it's a long process.
Yes. The review team gets a lot of applications.
Yes, I know.
Super excited that you were selected and that you've become one of the top designers for Samsung. Is theme designing, is this your full-time job or do you do other design projects?
Currently, it's my full-time job. I was so excited to be accepted. I just started creating one thing after another. First, it was mostly wallpapers, then themes. You also need to do a lot of other things, like searching for these images that you were going to use. Sometimes it takes a lot of time to find appropriate images that you want to use in the collage. Other thing is social media promotion. Takes tons of time.
Yes.
Registering the application, all these keywords, translating in other languages and verifying the other language because you cannot simply translate from English to Chinese.
Yeah.
You need to check if your translation is correct so the context is still the same. And yes, it takes a lot of time. So
that's interesting what you said as far as translating for different languages, because I know that you have that opportunity when you're publishing your app to go in and what's called add a language. If you don't add a language, then English is just the default language for your theme, meaning that regardless of what country a user is in, when they actually look at your theme for sale, they're having to read it in English. So you are taking that extra step then, correct? Where you are selecting to add a language and then putting in translation so that users from around the world will actually see your text in their native language, correct? Yeah, because I found out that many users, they do their search with their local language. On the other hand, there are one major issue. First of all, you cannot translate in all the languages. You can select the few most common ones. Yes. And the second issue, as I just mentioned, it's you need to be sure that the context is correct. Because, like Google Translator or reverse the context, sometimes they still can be misleading. You cannot always trust them. So then how do you gain confidence that what you're translating is correct? Well, I only have issues with Chinese and Korean language. And, Chinese language is mandatory there because if you don't have Chinese translation, your product won't be on the Chinese market. Yes. Korean language, again, due to the huge amount of buyers in Korea. So all I can do is just put the translation in the Google and check if the image is matching the words. So if the result will be similar to what I expect to see. So in Chinese, I recently translated the word pink.
pink color.
Okay.
But in Chinese, it to be translated as a cream.
Oh.
And that's something you don't want to do, because when you put this translation in the image search, you receive exactly the cream, like cakes and...
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Or for instance, the word spring, it will give you spring like piece of metal.
Yes, like a bouncing spring. Okay. So I see what you're doing. So you're taking the translated words and then sort of cross-referencing them in Google to just make sure that they are pulling up imagery that matches it. So you know that, that it has translated it correctly.
Yeah.
So let me go back and ask you. You had said that the name of your company is Zeru Studios. That's spelled Zeru. Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
Yeah. How did you come up with that name? Is there a meaning behind that?
Early internet years, I used the name Zeru as my nickname, and it means sky in Basque language. I just wanted to have a nickname, something related to sky. I don't know why. It was just kind of mood. And then I just borrowed my own nickname to name the studio because, it actually was quite a quick decision. I just needed to use something.
That's funny. So you had mentioned that there are a few other people that work with you, but they don't do design. Where are they assisting you?
Yeah, with the social media marketing, because, it's a routine job when you need to repeatedly, for instance, copy-paste tags.
Yes.
Like schedule posts, when you need to follow people. But it takes a lot of time, so that's why I need to save. And the second person is making these registrations and updating the applications. For instance, recently I needed to change prices because different countries, different abilities to pay, right? So we cannot put the same price for United States and for India and for, like Africa, for instance.
Sure.
Right? We need to adjust them accordingly. So depending on how much people can afford. Every product should be changed manually.
Yeah. So you're coming up with a custom pricing approach depending on different countries.
Yeah, that's an incredibly difficult job. What I could do is just to hire someone to change his prices.
I see. So we've talked a lot about themes, but are you designing also wallpapers, AOD, icons?
Yes, I design everything. So all 4 sections like themes, wallpapers, always on display images, and icons. And because I have a huge amount of wallpapers and AODs, that creates actually a big number of products in my store. So exactly it would be 1,650, something like this.
Wow. So I can see where you would need help with just managing so many different...
Yeah, exactly. Because if it was just a few hundreds of them, it was fine. But, there are also a lot of free products, but still there are still hundreds of products to be changed manually.
So let's talk about that for a moment, because that always is a good topic of discussion, and that is this whole free approach. Mm-hmm. So give me your insight. How are you utilizing the ability to offer free wallpapers, free themes?
Well, I would say my approach is just to take into account the people who cannot pay for the products. Of course, it's mostly wallpapers again, simply because, it takes just a little job to do them, because some wallpapers I create from the scratch, but still majority are modified stock images.
Okay. So
you just recoloring them, recomposing them, but just a little, it's not really a long, difficult work. But I have approximately 10% of my themes are free, and some of them, it took many, many hours to create, and still I was willing to release them for free because, like I said, the people who cannot buy, mostly it's countries that don't have access to the paid content in the store, because we have a huge section of these countries, especially in Africa, Asia, like small island countries, they don't have them at all, right?
Yes, that's a great approach. I mean, I often tell designers that you can utilize the free aspect of the Galaxy Store, but you do need to limit it so that you don't want to just be giving away all of your content where, your fan base is just expecting to get free. I mean, you can use it as a way to broaden your brand. But so you said that about 10% of your apps are free, meaning that the remaining 90% are paid, correct?
Yes, but it's only related to themes. For wallpapers and AODs, the percentage of free content is higher.
Oh, okay.
It can be up to 30%. Because, it's kind of compromise. If the person cannot or don't want to buy the theme, at least maybe this person can be satisfied with just a wallpaper.
So let's talk about your imagery, because I think that is one thing that stands out the most. I mean, you do this collaging. You've talked a bit about how sometimes you're utilizing your own photography, but you also are licensing stock photography.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about that approach.
Again, in the very beginning, I was only using my own images, and it was actually helpful because when I was creating my portfolio, I didn't want any conflict in situations with the review team. So they wouldn't say, oh, okay, like, we are not sure if these images ever belong to you. So I made sure I use only my own images just to show my capabilities so that I can use my own photography or my own artworks. But of course, later on, I started to utilize stock images simply because it's impossible for one person, again, to create everything on their own, right? Because you cannot be illustrator, 3D designer, videographer, and everything.
Sure.
So I started introducing stock images. And the most difficult part, as we all know, is licensing, because first of all, there is no clear border between modified image and non-modified image. Because of course, if you're doing a complex collage, that's obvious. But if you change just a little, you cannot always say for sure whether it's good to be using the theme or not. That's actually the open question. And I know that many designers, they keep asking it. So my approach is to use different stocks for that. The photo bank that has soft agreement, like kind of, you can use it, but just make sure you modify it just a little and the amount of your downloads is not too high, just doesn't exceed a certain number. But there are also some stocks with harder restrictions. Then you want to make sure you don't go with this image as is. You
had mentioned that when you first applied to become a themes designer, that you made certain that all of the artwork shown in your comp designs was truly your own artwork. And I just want to mention that, yes, that is a requirement, that for those that are applying to become a themes designer, you must use 100% all original artwork. You cannot use stock imagery. And just to repeat, when you are publishing themes, if you are using stock photography, you must make sure that you have the proper license in place for distributing certain imagery like that. Great to see that you are making that an important asset to your theme. Thank you. So let's talk a bit about your workflow and the software you use to create your themes and wallpapers. What's your first step?
Okay, first step, I need to get some inspiration. Normally, I don't need to do anything special for it because in your normal life, when you observe some scene on the street or you're watching nice landscapes on Instagram or some other people artworks on Pinterest, you already you see it and you think, oh, here is some inspiration for a new theme. And most often I get an influence from the music that I listen to. That actually a majority of my themes, they based on the picture that I create in my head while listening to some music.
That's very interesting. I love hearing that. And it's funny because when I see a lot of your theme designs, they inspire an emotion, and that emotion can definitely be conveyed, through music. So interesting that it's kind of reverse in the sense that what music you're inspired by at that moment is what helps you in your mind think of what would that theme be.
Yes, exactly. So you can actually see this picture in your head while you hear the sound. And even I have a few themes that started with a ringtone. So I don't know if you noticed, I have many of my themes, actually majority of my themes, they have customized sounds.
Yes.
And here's the thing. Some of the themes, it's when I hear the beautiful piece in the sound bank, and I'm like, wow, that's a perfect ringtone. Now I need to make a picture for this ringtone. That's funny, but it's like the odd way, reverse way to do things. But yes, it's also a source of inspiration.
So that's really interesting that you say that, because this past year you actually won the Best of Galaxy Store Award for Best Innovative Theme.
Yes.
And when I saw your theme nominated, that's what stood out. When I heard the ringtones, I thought, wow, this is really capturing the essence of the theme titled Dark Warrior. So let's talk a little bit about that. How did you first learn that you were winning the Best Innovative Theme for Best of Galaxy Store Awards 2020?
Yes, I was just notified, and I didn't expect that, to be honest.
So have you leveraged, the fact that you won this award?
Well, it just inspired me to create more themes that would contain something different. For that, I research the store market regularly just to check what other designers do and trying to figure out what they did not try to apply in their themes. So something that can be a sort of unique element. We all want to be unique in something, right? Because we want to be distinct, not just flood the store with the same kind of themes.
Yes. So what was unique with this year's award show was that because of the pandemic, we were not able to have an in-person event. So that meant everything was online. For those of you that haven't seen it, go check out on YouTube. We have our Best of Galaxy Store Awards for 2020. Olga wins the Best Innovative Theme Award for her theme Dark Warrior. I actually had the honor of helping Olga create the trailer video. When we announce who won the award and what it was for, we play a quick little 30-second clip to help the viewers see what this theme was. That was a blast for me to take your theme and the essence that you've created and try to bring that to film. I was able to, have some fun doing some voiceover work. I had a colleague of mine help with myself, where we both did the voice that is heard overlaid on top of the video and doing the motion behind it. So I actually had a blast working on that trailer for your Dark Warrior theme.
And it was a fantastic job of you, actually, because I was wow, like so much surprised. And it was really amazing,
Yeah, so those definitely go check out the video on YouTube. You can jump ahead to when Olga wins the award and take a look at that. It was definitely a highlight for me working on that, on the Theme Awards project. So let's go back even a little bit further. You actually came out to SDC 19 to San Jose, correct?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, that's when I first met you. So tell me about that experience. What was that like to fly down to San Jose and get to meet not only the people at Samsung, but I'm sure you had the opportunity to meet a lot of the other developers that were there at the event.
Actually, I can tell straight, it was my best experience of this year. The best event I ever attended in the last few years, probably, or even more. It was actually very exciting because not only I could meet people in the real life, make new connections, but I learned a lot. I attended your seminar on design and watch face.
So the seminar that you're referring to, is that the one that I had the comedian up on stage with me and we were working with the audience to,
Yeah.
That was a lot of fun. We actually brought in a professional comedian, and together we were able to get the audience to help us inspire to create a watch design. That was quite a fun event.
Yeah, absolutely.
Unfortunately, this year we were not able to have a live event because of the pandemic. Can you tell me how the pandemic has affected you in your work?
Honestly, it wasn't affected at all because I just keep doing my things, and even my sales were not affected. Surprisingly, I was prepared for the worst, but it didn't happen.
Sure.
And I would say it was rather beneficial because I spent more time staying home. And that gave me opportunity to learn more. Mm-hmm. Now I can say I improved my skills. Because if not pandemic, I would probably spend this time more hanging outside with people, something like this.
That's true. And you know what? You're not the first developer who has told me that. Due to the pandemic, more people were on their devices. They were at home. We saw a definite uptick in the use of devices, which meant that more people were downloading themes and wallpapers. But likewise, more developers were stuck at home. And so they had more time to really work on their marketing, their designs, just really building their brand. So we did see some success stories come out of this, unfortunate pandemic that we've all been in. So what is in the future for Olga Gabay and Zeru Studios?
So I'm planning to introduce more of my own artwork, like the same as I did in the very beginning, and to be unique.
So let's talk about some of the other designers. So who out there in the Samsung Galaxy Store inspires you?
I would say the theme designers are Sebastian Vladkevich and Air Design.
Yes, both are great designers. If you want to find them on the Galaxy Store, Sebastian Molokevich is SW Designs. That's the letter S and the letter W. And Air Designs is spelled AIRE Designs. Yeah, and I love all of their themes.
In my opinion, that's how the perfect theme should look like in terms of interface and usability. So something that looks comfortable for the eyes with good looking icons. And what I love about these two designers, they always have good choice of colors. Their icons are clear, readable. They don't use color combination that hurt your eyes.
When I teach classes, I remind the students, if it takes somebody, a few seconds to actually figure out what that icon is, then you failed. So color, simplicity, when it comes to icons, those are all extremely important. So when you are not designing themes, what do you like to do for fun?
First of all, I prefer to spend time outside, especially in the nature, and I stick to the active lifestyle. So I love all kinds of alternative workouts that can be performed outside of the gyms. And also it's traveling, and mostly traveling. So I have visited many different countries and cities, and I love to do travel photography. And then I also sell some of these images on photo banks. And that's kind of, I would say, hobby or side hustle, but I enjoy it.
That's great. That's great. So not only are you utilizing stock imagery by purchasing the license to use them in your work, but you also are taking your photos and putting them out there for other people to use. So that's great.
Yes, exactly.
Well, Olga, thank you very much for being on the podcast. I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with me. It's been a lot of fun.
Thank you very much, Tony, for this opportunity. I really enjoyed this chat.
Looking to start creating for Samsung? Download the latest tools to code your next app. Or get software for designing apps without coding at all. Sell your apps to the world on the Samsung Galaxy Store. Check out developer.samsung.com today and start your journey with Samsung.
The PAL podcast is brought to you by the Samsung Developer Program and produced by Tony Moreland.